Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another speed build. Today we are building in the world of Windenburg. We are in the Old Town neighborhood and we are building on the Habisham house lot. And I actually I feel the need to start off this voiceover by saying that I'm aware that this video is ridiculously long. We are in for a 50 plus minute speed build, and this is not even a big build. Like, we are building on a 20 by 20 lot, so yeah, it has absolutely no business being that long. And honestly, 53 minutes for a tiny house is kind of insane. And like, when I realized that the video would turn out so long, I was not shocked, but I was very concerned because it really shouldn't be that long. And I blame nobody who doesn't have the patience or doesn't feel like watching a speed build for such a tiny and simple build that takes so long. And I know that this is a problem because I have some bigger builds in the works, and I don't even want to imagine how long these videos will turn out. And I honestly don't know how some people build mansions and castles and then edit the footage down to a 20-minute speed build. I simply cannot wrap my head around this. And I know that some speed builders actually plan their builds out more beforehand, before they start recording. Or sometimes they even, I think, build everything or furnish everything and then they delete it again and only then press record. And so everything comes together really, really quickly, and it is a very clean process and much easier for editing. But as you can probably tell from my videos, I'm not doing this. So you're basically just seeing my natural building process, just edited down, and I'm just taking stuff out apparently. But this is just how I'm building, how I'm figuring the build out. And this is also why my builds tend to be very chaotic. I try to have my editing process in mind now, like more than I did when I started this channel. So I'm just trying not to spin my camera around so much, and I'm trying to keep everything pleasant to watch, but I'm not always successful. And I really see that I have to reconsider how I'm doing my videos and how I'm building things if I want to continue making speed builds, because yeah, 50 minutes is just way too long. I know that my very first speed build that I shared on the channel, which was this medieval farmhouse, I split that up in two parts because it was too long, and I think these two parts together would have been longer than this video here, but I think it's still, in most cases, it just doesn't really work. And I think this video is actually way too long, and I'm really, really sorry for this. I just went with the length of this video. I just stuck to it because I had already done all the editing, and I tried to shorten it down, but it didn't really work. It was still way too long, and I'm just going with it for now. I know it's very far from ideal, but if you still want to stick around, I would be super thankful. So maybe grab yourself something to drink, a coffee or tea or a little snack, and then we'll just hang around for the next 50 minutes. And I hope I won't run out of stuff to talk about, but this would be surprising because I can ramble for hours. So yeah. But before I go even further in my rambling, I should probably talk a little bit about the build. So as you can see, we're building a rather small home. It's sort of a traditional, I will say, German house, or more so Franconian house. Like, I was looking at many photos of Franconian half-timbered houses for reference. I didn't use one specific build that I wanted to recreate or anything, but I just was looking at several pictures of houses in Franconian towns mostly, and it is sort of a tiny house, at least by the game standards. So obviously, realistically speaking, this is still a full-grown house, but it counts as a tiny house in the game, or more so a small home. So it is a tier 3 tiny house in the game. I think it has like 97 tiles, which makes it actually smaller than this shotgun style home that I was building some time ago, which is really weird because this really doesn't feel smaller at all. It has 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms, and you could say that I cheated a little bit because this little shed that I added to the left side, as you can see, does not actually count to the tiles of this build. I created this little shed using half walls, and I built it in a way that it doesn't count as a closed room. but I wouldn't, like, personally, I would not say this is cheating because it actually just will end up containing a woodworking table and some outdoor trash cans, which just as well could be on the outside. So I don't really think this is a full-grown interior space, and therefore I didn't really mind building it in a way that it doesn't count towards the tile count. But yeah, maybe someone might think differently about this. I also, like, maybe you noticed that this shed had a roof which has now disappeared again. And I used sort of a building trick to create this roof because obviously normally you can only place a roof atop of a closed room. Because this is not a closed room, because it's made of half walls, I had to use a little trick. And it's a little bit finicky because as soon as you delete any other walls at the building or you create new walls, this roof will probably get deleted. But I will repeat this whole process later in the video, so we are going to see this again. And I hope I will remember to explain how exactly it works when we see it on screen again. I was also using some Basegame blinds to create fake shutters. I like to do this just to add more details. And I was also a little bit restricted with what I could use because this is also another pack restricted build and we're only using Get Together and Basegame. So yeah, this is another build for this series that I kind of have going on the channel. I'm not really sure if I should call it a series because I'm not really sure if I can ever finish it. So in this series, I'm building a tiny house with every pack, or at least this is the idea, because we have so many packs in The Sims and we are continuously getting more. So I'm not really hopeful to ever finish this series, and I probably do not have the motivation to ever finish it, but I'm just adding to this little series whenever I feel like it. I think so far I have 3 builds on the channel that fit this category. So I have 1 tiny house built with Courtyard Oasis and then 2 with some stuff packs that were available for free for a limited amount of time. So one was My First Pet Stuff, the other one was Backyard Stuff Pack, and this is the 4th one of this series. So I have a playlist for this in case you're interested in specifically 1 pack tiny houses. But yeah, as you might have also noticed at the beginning of the video, at first I didn't really plan to make it a tiny house, so it was way bigger at the beginning, and also this bump out that is now the shed was 2 stories high, so I really wanted it to be bigger. But while I was building, I was thinking that this would just work really well as a part of this tiny house series, and so I changed it to fit the tile count. I just knew from the very beginning that I only wanted to use Basegame and Get Together, and the reason for this was that it was supposed to be an entry for a challenge that a fellow simmer was running, and in this challenge we were supposed to kind of showcase a pack that we really liked and that we thought was great by creating either a build or a sim with only this 1 pack. And I thought that was a great idea and I was kind of inspired by it. However, I think the deadline for this challenge was at the end of June, so I kind of messed it up. But yeah, I'm just notoriously bad at sticking to deadlines, also in real life, so I shouldn't be surprised. But yeah, anyway, I still wanted to finish this build, which I originally started building for this challenge. I'll come back to this in a minute. First, I just wanted to explain what's happening on screen. So you see me taking out these roundish fence pieces from the World Edit Objects menu, because at first I was thinking about creating a garden with rounded walls, and I had to lift them up from the basement because they have a very big footprint. So if you place them on the ground floor, basically they could just very easily block your Sim's path, and I wanted to avoid that, and so I created this basement to just raise up these fence pieces. But yeah, as you can see, I then decided to delete them and replace them by these regular straight fence pieces because they just seem to fit the whole, I don't really know, the whole scenery better and the shape of the house. So I didn't really think that these round fence pieces would work for this build, and so I ended up deciding against them. And I'm using these decorative fences and not the regular ones from Build By because you have a little bit more freedom with how big the garden, the enclosed area can be, because apparently the regular fence pieces cannot be placed everywhere. They have to be placed on the grid, and with using these fences, you can just generally avoid that and have more freedom with where to place them. And I was very undecisive with the whole landscaping situation because I still felt this lot was a bit too big for this tiny house. It's a 20 by 20, so really one of the smallest lot sizes we have in game, but I wanted this build to be more, I don't know how to say that, more wide than deep. And so I didn't really know what to place at the front of the lot because I wanted the garden to be wider and not go all the way to the front part of the lot, if this makes any sense. So I decided to kind of create a flower bed that would look like it belongs to the decoration of the town and not be part of the actual lot. I didn't find the plants that were used for the decoration of the surrounding neighborhood. I really looked at the flower beds that are all around this place, but I couldn't find the white plants that were used. I think I later realized that they were just some sort of a tree that was partly hidden in the ground, if I remember correctly, but I didn't go back to put them there. I just used some regular white flowers from Basegame. And yeah, I still think it kind of worked out, so I just wanted to create this idea that the front of this lot is not actually a part of this whole lot. Again, an overly complicated explanation, but I hope it became sort of clear what I was trying to say. Also for the rest of this area, like especially the space in front of the house itself and to the right side of the house, I was so undecisive what I wanted to place there, and I didn't really know what to do there. But yeah, you're going to see me struggling with this sometime later. Now, I was talking about this challenge, and I decided to build something using Get Together because every time someone asks me what my favorite pack is and which pack I like the most, I think of Get Together. And I know it's one of the older expansion packs. I think it was the second one that was ever released, but I still think it is such a good pack. So first of all, I think it has one, if not the biggest world that we have in The Sims 4. And I just think the neighborhoods are super beautiful, really pretty, and I think it's mostly inspired by Germany and other European countries, so it maybe feels also close to home because I'm from Germany. So yeah, it looks a little bit familiar. Maybe this is also why I like it, but also, yeah, I just like this old town neighborhood. It's not perfect. I think it has some flaws, but it is still very pretty, and especially this very green foresty area and the island. They're so pretty, and also the chateau with the hedge maze. It's such a cool place also for, I don't know, storytelling and things like that. I just think that Windenburg is such a beautiful world, and I really love building there, and there's such a great variety of lot sizes. Like we have anything from like 20 by 20 up to 64 by 64, and there's really just something for everyone. So I think the world is really great, and I'm not that much of a gameplay person, but I really think that the club system is so great if you're, for example, trying to create a save file and you want to add some lore into your world. It is a very fun feature. I haven't even explored it that much, but I think it's kind of cool. And then especially build by is so good, really. Like it sometimes really feels hard not to use Get Together when building because it just has so many amazing objects, especially if you like building historically inspired builds. It has so many useful things like these Tudor style furniture pieces. It has these half timbered wallpapers. It has so much cool stuff that you can use for these more traditional European sort of builds. Then it also has some amazing trees and live edit objects. It has also some cool modern stuff that is sometimes really useful. For example, this very simple column that is just really versatile, or the walk-in closets. It's the only pack that comes with this type of walk-in closets. There's just so much useful stuff, and it's really such a staple for building, at least for me personally. I like this pack so much for my builds. And also Cass is quite good. I think it's not my favorite pack what the Cass stuff is concerned, but there are some really good things in there, like some hair that I think are still among my favorites, and also some pieces of clothing, and especially like the fact that it has breeches, because I love historical fashion and I'm especially into fashion from the 17th and 18th century, and this is the only pack that has breeches that kind of look like they could be from this era, and sometimes I like creating sims that would fit that epoch, and I'm always going to these breeches because they are just so perfect. So yeah, I think Get Together is just a fantastic pack, and if you're still unsure what Sims packs to get, then I would definitely recommend Get Together because I feel there's something in this pack for everybody. And yeah, so I decided to build a house using only Get Together for this challenge that I mentioned. And again, I didn't come around to finish that in time, but I still had a lot of fun building this. And the challenge was hosted by Profit M30, that's her ID on the Sims gallery, and she also has a YouTube channel. And you should definitely check her out. She's super creative. She usually builds base game only builds or pack restricted builds, and they are really super unique and out of the box. And I always really love looking at what she's doing because it's just so out of the ordinary. And she's also just the kindest person. So she's very supportive, very helpful. She's just a very lovely simmer. And yeah, you should definitely go and check out her stuff. And you should also check the hashtag that she used for the challenge, which was, I think, aGreatPackChall. I will leave all these information in the description, but you can find so many amazing pack restricted builds and sims in this hashtag on the gallery, and you should definitely check this out because there was so many amazing entries. And yeah, I just think it was a really great idea, and I kind of regret that I didn't manage to finish my entry in time, but whatever, it still was, of course, really fun to create this build. Now, I'm already into decorating the sides of the build, and as I mentioned before, I was super undecisive what to do there, and I just spared you a lot of my trial and error because I spent a lot of time just adding a lot of detail, like a lot of time, and then I looked at it and I was unhappy with it, so I deleted everything again and tried it again. And I feel I spent such a great part of the whole building time just on this decoration of the sides of this build. It was almost ridiculous, and I didn't really know what to do there because I wanted to create some more flower beds, but I didn't really know what to use for an outline of these beds. So in the end, I decided to use this gray brick. I don't exactly know what it is. It's in debug or among the live edit objects. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be or what purpose it normally has in the game, but it worked really well for what I was trying to create here. I normally would use this, what Kate Emerald would call the base game debug brick, which is, I think, actually some sort of a pack of flower seeds, and it has two different shades. There's one that is white and one that is more brown or yellow, I don't really know. But it didn't really fit this build because the white one was too bright and the yellow tone just looked very off. And so I decided to use this gray thing instead. So I think it turned out okay, and I then just planted more of these white bushes from base game and some of these, I don't know, magnolia trees, or that's probably embarrassing. It's probably like a completely different sort of tree, but I don't know. But I placed these trees and I lowered them a little bit more in the ground with the tool mod just to make them more so look like bushes. And then I filled up the entire side of the build because I don't know, sometimes I'm struggling to leave empty spots in a build because then it looks unfinished. I wouldn't mind this in real life, and I don't think it's very realistic that everything around a build would be completely filled up, obviously. But in The Sims, it sometimes looks off and it looks boring and unfinished, and I wanted to avoid this, and so I decided to create some more flower beds. And I think, like right now, I'm still thinking it looks okay. Maybe I will hate it when I look at it some months from now, but at the moment it's still okay. And I'm going to come back to the landscaping sometime later because I still was very undecisive what the garden was concerned, and I was a bit stuck on it. I didn't really know what to do, and so I'm just furnishing the inside of the house first, and then I'll go back to decorate the whole garden. So yeah, apparently we are on the inside of this build now, and I wanted the interior to be more on the traditional side, to look somewhat old-fashioned, maybe even outdated, and to look like a couple of grandparents' home. and I wanted it to be a mix of stuff that is kind of charming and maybe even elegant, so more vintage, but then also some things that are more sort of kitsch and that don't work that well anymore and don't look that great anymore, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I just wanted it to be a little bit older looking. And at first, I wasn't super set on what sort of family would live in this build. And I think at first I imagined just very generically a couple of grandparents with maybe their grandchild. And I wasn't even sure if it would be a teen or a child, or if the kid would live there permanently, or if the bedroom would only be for them to visit. But in the end, the family or the household I had in mind turned out to be rather specific. And I know I do this a lot for my builds, and I kind of try to avoid it and not to go too specific and not to come up with so much backstory because, yeah, probably nobody's going to play in this build with that specific household that I imagined. But again, I think things got the better of me and I came up with way more backstory than I originally intended. And yeah, so now I kind of have a very clear idea of what people are living in this house. So you will have to listen to that story again. I'm very sorry. That also reminds me that I still have one last apartment for the Brightchester townhouses to do, which I hope is going to be up on the channel in August. But yeah, as you already realized, I'm not very steady with my upload schedule, so who knows? But I hope it will be up in August as well. I'm almost done with this apartment, and it definitely won't take me that much time to edit as this build, so you should see this in the close future. Yeah, and now for the furnishings, I mostly went with base game stuff, honestly. At least on the ground floor, there's just mostly base game stuff, because base game has this very elegant furniture pieces, these couches, this armchair that just fit very well what I was going for. And there are some pieces from Get Together as well. I was also kind of feeling that that one corner in this living room next to the stairs was very empty. I didn't really know what to do there. I just thought it would be very nice, or it would also be realistic to have the space under the staircase as a storage space or some type of a cupboard, but I didn't really know how to do this. When I tried to delete this wall under the staircase, it would just delete all stuff, like all the clutter in the room, as it happened so often. And then I also couldn't really place any shelves in a reasonable way. So in the end, I used to debug objects that I placed in the wall in a way that would make it look like there's some sort of a cupboard under the stairs. Like, at least in my mind, it was looking like this. I don't know if that comes across. I don't know if you feel it looks like a cupboard. You can let me know in the comments maybe. But I'm also going to add some more deco in the end, like a broom and a bucket full of water, so it looks like they were just finished with cleaning the living room or something, because it just felt the need to put something else there, because again, I'm very afraid of empty spaces when building in The Sims, so I had to put something there. And then there's also this very tiny half bathroom on the ground floor. I just thought it would make sense to have another toilet there in case they had guests, because maybe it's a little bit awkward to always send your guests up the stairs if they need to use the toilet. So I thought it would make sense to have like a really, really tiny bathroom with just a toilet and a sink on the ground floor. And there's another full bathroom on the upper floor with a shower tub combo. So yeah. And then I'm also once again using some random base game debug objects to create sort of a toilet brush, because it just adds some realism and I like to do that sometimes. So yeah, also doing it here. And then we're done with this bathroom and moving on to the kitchen. And the kitchen is also the dining space, so there will be a dining table with 3 chairs, so just enough to fit all the persons that would live in this house. And I also really try to build the kitchen in a way that the stove, the oven, would be in front of the chimney, or where the chimney is outside. And I always really try to do this in my builds, to place either a fireplace or a stove on the inside, corresponding to the place where the chimney is on the outside. Why am I so bad at explaining things today? Yeah, whatever. I just hate it when there's a chimney on the outside and then there's nothing on the inside that would justify the chimney to be there. So I mean, this could happen in more modern builds where there was an open fireplace and then later they decided to remove it or whatever. But in this case, I just wanted there to be something. And this is one of these old stoves that run with fire and with timber. So I thought it would make sense that it would be connected to the chimney. I mean, the chimney is quite big for the stove, but it still made some sort of sense. And so the chimney didn't feel completely useless. And yeah, so apart from that, the kitchen is also quite rustic and traditional. For example, I'm going to size up that range hood so it will just be really big and chunky. And then I'm also going to add some decorative plates to the walls above the dining table because it just added to this grandparent energy. I just thought this is a piece of decoration that has probably gone out of fashion a long time ago. And I also think that, like, it can look really nice, but I think that these plates that we get in Basegame just look a bit outdated and not super classy, I'd say. So yeah, I thought they fit in here. And yeah, at this point, I should probably talk about the people living in this house. So for some reason, at the end, I ended up with the idea that this house belonged to two elderly ladies who rent out one of their bedrooms to guests, to tourists or students or whatever. So I don't know why I was so sad on this being for two ladies, but yeah, I just thought these were two elderly women who, in one way or another, they have a very close relationship to each other because they share a bedroom. Not just a bedroom, but they share one bed. So they have to be close to each other. I don't know, maybe they are sisters or cousins or very good friends or a couple. I didn't really elaborate on this. I just thought that they were just very, very close to each other, so they didn't mind sharing a bed or wanted to share a bed. I really don't know. But yeah, this is what I had in mind. And also, the two of them ended up having very distinct characters. So they are basically the opposite of each other. And it's also very cliche because it's sort of a grumpy sunshine situation. So one of these ladies is just very outgoing, very chatty and cheerful. And the other one is more silent and serious. And yeah, so, very cliche, but I just thought it was cute to imagine them like this. And yeah, I thought that they rent out this one room, the spare bedroom, to guests. And I also thought that they probably offer them breakfast so people can eat with them if they want to. And yeah, I'm also only now decorating the dining space. I've been talking about this like 5 minutes ago, and it's only now happening on screen. So I timed it very, very well, but you saw these plates that I was talking about. They kind of look rather old-fashioned, and I just felt they added to this grandma energy, as I said before. So yeah. Now, I was talking about these two ladies. I also really thought that they probably would offer lunch packs to their guests. At least one of them, the more chatty one. And I had scenes playing in my head of her being like, oh, you should take something to eat if you're running around Windenburg all day. And it would be really hard to say no to her because she would be really insisting on giving them something to eat and making them a sandwich. And the other one would probably be like, no, they probably want to eat in town. Don't be annoying to them. And I kind of imagined them being like not fighting, but bickering all of the time, and I just was kind of really growing fond of this idea of this household that I had in mind. I even gave them names, so one of them is Rosemary, the other one is Clara. Rosemary is the chatty one, Clara is the more reserved one. I don't know, I feel I kind of have to make them in cast now, but who knows if this will ever happen. But yeah, you see, I grew way too attached to them and just really went overboard again. And I'm sorry if this is annoying, but yeah, whatever. I think we're almost done with this kitchen and we're moving on to the upper floor. And the upper floor is really just, there's a hallway, there's the bathroom, there are the two bedrooms. And I decided that on the hallway I would also add some sort of a desk, which you'll see later. And there was a weird issue with the staircase, which I don't know if I ever had that before, if this is something new, but basically there was, like, I could see the upper edge of the wall of the room beneath, if this makes sense. Probably because the staircase is not all covered up with walls, but there's a part, like the corner of one of the rooms is right next to the staircase, and it looked kind of weird. I don't really know if this comes across in the footage, but it looked really, really weird. There was this edge, this gray edge, and it looked so off. I don't know. I think it never happened to me before to have this weird edge. So I used this get together wall panel, which is some sort of a decorative wall panel, and I tried to use the tool mod to cover up this weird edge of the wall because it looked so off. And yeah, so this also took me quite some time, and this is just me again being very perfectionist about a detail, which I don't know if anybody would have noticed, but yeah, it was very annoying to me. And then later I'm creating this desk. I use this very, very old Basegame computer that really looks extremely outdated. I wasn't even sure if I should give them a computer, but then I thought it would be funny if they just had this super old thing, which probably still runs with Windows XP or something. So I thought this was cute, and then I just placed some random clutter on the bookshelves and on the desk itself, and just wanted to decorate it a little bit because I thought they probably would need some sort of a computer to take reservations for their room. So maybe they're even on Airbnb or something. I don't really know, but they have this computer so at least they can in some way take online reservations. And I also use the Basegame wall decorations that are just 3 keys in a box. I never really know how and where to use it, but in this case I just thought that maybe these were like the keys for the room and the house, which they would hand out to their guests. And I just thought it contributed to giving this idea that this was kind of a bed and breakfast or Airbnb situation. Yeah, I don't know. And yeah, I was also placing some black and white photography on the walls and some paintings. So obviously it's just a hallway, so it's not very spectacular at all. But yeah. And regarding the backstory, I also thought that these 2 ladies would probably rent out that room for a rather low and cheap price, and they'd probably also be prone to offer a discount if the guest would help them in the garden or the house. So it would really be a great opportunity for students or like any guest who just wants to save a bit of money to stay there and rent their room if they wanted to go to Windenburg. But yeah, it was just my idea. Obviously, you cannot play it exactly like this in The Sims, but I just thought it was a nice backstory. And I also thought that one of these ladies would just be super nosy about what their guests would be doing in Windenburg and would always be like, oh, is this your first time in Windenburg? Have you come to see somebody? How do you like it? And the other one would always be like, no, Rosemary, this is not our business. Leave the guests alone. So yeah, you can stay at this place for like a low price, but you have to deal with these ladies. They can be a little bit much sometimes, but yeah. And I think then we are already moving on to the bedroom of the 2 women, and I think one of the first things I thought about was this painting I placed over the bed, because it's one of the paintings that your Sims can create in game on the easel, and it's this painting of 2 deer standing in a landscape, and I knew from the very start that I wanted to place it there. I remembered that it is in game, and I just thought this is the most 1950s German middle class thing. It is so cliche, and I just had to place it there. Like, my grandparents didn't have a painting like this above their bed or something, but it is definitely a style that would fit these sort of old-fashioned interiors. And I think I only realized later on that one of the deer on this painting is wearing a pair of sunglasses, which I thought is really funny. I didn't notice this at first, but that is very Sims. But I still thought that this painting just fit this place so well. Again, probably Rosemary chose this painting. I don't know if Clara really likes it, but it's been hanging there for so many years and decades now that she grew used to it, and it fit this place so nicely. Not necessarily the colors, but not everything has to fit so well together. And I used the tool mod to place or to drag the painting a bit more into the wall so it would fit into this frame. and I placed some dark wooden furniture, and yeah, the furniture pieces really fit the rest of the house. And yeah, there's not that much to say about it. It is all play tested, so the bedroom is a little bit crammed together, but it should all work. I also wanted to make sure that your Sims have books or a bookshelf on the upper floor so that they do not have to go down to the living room to get a book. It didn't really work that perfectly at first because I placed several stacks of books on this wardrobe, and your Sims can only take a book from this stack of books if it snaps to a surface. So I made sure that at least one of them was snapping into a slot. Then I placed the stack of paintings behind it to just fill up the empty space. And this pile of paintings was actually blocking the books when I playtested it, so I had to just move it a little bit more to the left or to the right. Like, I don't even remember. I just moved it to the side, and then it was working fine, and my sim wasn't trying to go downstairs anymore to take a book. So yeah, I was very happy about this. I also had to block the stairs to really make sure that it would work. And then I had it work, and when I unblocked the stairs, my sim would still walk downstairs to get a book, and I was so confused about this, but in the end I had it work, and yeah, your sims should be able to take a book upstairs. I hate if your sims just run around the house to just get a book that they could just easily grab from wherever they're standing. But yeah, it should work. And that's pretty much all about this bedroom. I'm just still decorating these bedside tables, and I used some Basegame bar stools again instead of regular bedside tables, because the bedside tables we have in the game are usually ginormous, and they definitely did not fit this tiny space. So the stools just fit in there perfectly. I usually try to rotate them so your Sims do not accidentally sit on them, but yeah, they just worked much better in this small space. And then we are already in the upstairs bathroom, and it is really a super simple space. It basically looks exactly like the one on the ground floor, except for the size, apparently. But we have the same tiles, we have the same sink, the same toilet. The decoration is super similar, and then we just have this shower tub combo, which also looks pretty old-fashioned with the pattern on this curtain. So it just fit the whole style of this house perfectly, and that is pretty much all to say about this bathroom. It is actually very boring. I know it's a little bit awkward how this tub is placed in front of this one window and how it's partly covering up the window, but I thought because it was a shower tub combo with a curtain, it wasn't that bad, because technically you can draw the curtain aside, so you can have light and air coming in. I wouldn't have done this if it would be like a built-in combo, but in this version I thought it was okay. And there was also kind of a problem with the lamps on the ceiling, because I had raised the upper floor up, like basically there is a platform that is like one step high. I did this because there was some sort of a weird shadow created by the walls on the lower floor. This has been an issue with platforms since they were added to the game, I think, and I don't think it will ever be fixed, but I just wanted this shadow to disappear, so I raised the floor of the upper floor up by one step. And then the ceiling wasn't high enough anymore, and so the lamps hanging from the ceiling would block my Sim's path, so I had to again use the tool mod to raise them up a little bit so that my Sim could walk beneath them. But again, in the end, everything should be working perfectly fine. And yeah, there's one room left on the upper floor, and that's the second bedroom, which I thought that these two ladies would be renting out. Now, there are different ways, of course, how you can play this in games. So if you have for rent, you can actually turn this into a rental unit, and you can make most of the rest of the house a shared space. Or if you have Discover University, you can work with the roommate system. Or if you do not have any of these packs, you can just move an additional Sim into this household, and then you can lock the doors so they can only use like this room and the bathroom and the downstairs space, but they cannot enter the master bedroom, for example. So there are different ways how you can play this, and I just thought this backstory could be some sort of an inspiration for some sort of unique type of gameplay. And This room is a little bit more neutral and toned down than the rest of the house, so not as much questionable clutter and decorations from a long time ago. Like there are some of them, but I think it was mostly Clara to furnish this room, and she wanted to make sure that guests would kind of feel at home. So we have the bed that is in the soft green tone, and the walls are like in a simple white, and I try to keep it nice looking. Personally, I think this is the most timeless looking room of the house, and because the guest has to share a bedroom with the two landladies, which might be a little bit awkward at times, but I couldn't fit another bathroom upstairs, so I thought that it would make sense that they would have at least their own sink in their bedroom, and this is definitely something I've seen in older hotels. And in my parents' house, my brother and in our rooms, we used to have sinks, so I think this is definitely something that can happen in older homes. Let me know if you have seen this before. Maybe this is just a European thing. Like, I've seen this in Germany and Italy and in older homes, as I said. So, yeah, and I just thought it would make sense that maybe they at least have their own sink so they can brush their teeth in their room and can also grab a glass of water. And then I also thought that it would be cool if they had their own fridge, and we just got this mini fridge with that login event. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but we got some new objects for the base game, and among them was this mini fridge. And yeah, I thought it fit in there very nicely, and I also put a coffee machine up there so the guests can make themselves some coffee. And I placed a table with some chairs, and I put a water bottle up there and a pen, because you often have this in like hotels or in holiday apartments that you get like some free paper, some pens to write some things. And there's also a water and I didn't clutter it too much. I still wanted to place some decoration. I also placed this very weird looking plant from Basegame that I have never ever used before because it looks like a ugly plastic plant, but I thought that Rosemary probably insisted on placing this in this room to have at least some pop of color, and Clara couldn't keep her from placing the plastic flower there, so now it is in there, and this is it for this bedroom. So then I'm just adding some last touches around the whole house, and we are also placing the broom and the bucket on the ground floor in the living room, as I mentioned at the beginning, because I just thought that it would fit there, and probably they are giving great importance to their home being clean, also because they have guests living with them, so they just give a great importance to everything being tidy. And this is everything for the interior, and then we're moving outside to the garden. And here you can see how I'm creating this roof above this room made of half walls. So you have to basically create a one tile room on the ground floor, then you create another one tile room above it, and on this one you will place the roof. Then you delete the room at the bottom, and then you can freely move this room above it, and then you can move the roof to the position where you want it. Then you have to move the roof in a way that it is floating in the air, so it may not touch this floating room, but also not this room made of half walls. And then you slowly drag it over the room where you want it. So I don't really know if this was understandable at all. There are some really good tutorials out about this, so I think Kate Emerald made one. So if you want to know how this works, they are doing a way better job than I was doing here, but this is the idea how this works. You have to try around a little bit to find the perfect height, and then you have to remember that you should do this at the very end of your building process, because as I said at the beginning, if you add another wall or you delete a wall, then the roof will probably disappear. But it shouldn't be a problem when placing the build from the gallery. At least I hope so. So yeah, this is how I could add a roof to this shed. I really wish, I wish so urgently that we could connect rooms of different wall heights on one level. This would be so amazing, and especially after playing Tiny Glade, I would hope so much that if we ever get a Sims 5, that this would be an option we had, because it would open up so many more possibilities. And yeah, but like right now we have to help ourselves with these tricks. Now the garden, I just removed a lot of the footage because it was just getting really tedious. I placed a lot of plants. At the beginning I was very set on making this all green and white, so I only chose flowers that were white, but I just thought it looked a little bit too clean in the end, so I changed the swatches of some of them to be pink. And at first I had a very clear idea of how I wanted the garden to look like at the very beginning of my building process. But as it happens very often to me, I then sometimes cannot grab my first idea anymore. It's kind of moving away from me and I cannot really pinpoint what I was going for. I know this sounds so weird, but yeah, I was struggling to kind of make this vision come to life. And then also later, I was scrolling through my library in the game, and I came across someone else's build that was also on this exact lot, and it had a somewhat similar style, and I realized that the garden of this build looked very similar to what I had originally imagined for my own build. And I realized that I accidentally recreated what they had created in my mind. So yeah, I just thought it probably was good that the garden went into a different direction than what I originally had thought of, because apparently this really wasn't my own idea. So yeah, it ends up looking pretty different from this other person's build, but apparently there still was some inspiration coming from this. There's like this little pond in the garden, and I also wanted there to be several planters so you can really grow a lot of fruit and vegetables and herbs, and it looks pretty nice. I've just tried around a lot with the terrain paint. There are some people who can really create such a beautiful texture, I will say, with terrain paint, but for me it never really works and it always looks a little bit off. But yeah, and I was adding a lot of details, a lot of additional decoration just to make this garden really come to life. And inside the shed I added this woodworking table, I added the outdoor trash cans, and I wanted this shed to be really cluttered on the inside, like a place where there's just a lot of useless stuff that just came together over time and that doesn't really have a purpose, but also mixed with gardening tools and things like that. So what you would realistically store in a shed, you have probably a lot of stuff that you do not know where to put, and then it ends up out there. And I really think the decoration that I end up placing there, we are not there yet, but yeah, the decoration is going to be really, really random. And also another thing I was repeatedly thinking about when looking at this lot from above was that actually I would have to also renovate the lot to the right of it in this exact same style so that it would fit together. And this had me thinking about creating a Windenburg save file. Like, I would be really inspired to create a save file. I have ideas for Windenburg and Newcrest. However, I mean, you see how long it takes me to finish a build, so it would probably take me 84 years to finish this save file, so I'm not very confident that we are ever going to see this, but maybe I'll at least create like the neighboring lot to look similar to this one so that they would fit together. And yeah. And then I was also just adding these stacks of timber to the side and readjusting these climbing plants and adding more details. And I think then I'm finally going to actually decorating the interior of this shed. I was placing the shelves, which I'm going to completely fill up with clutter. And as I mentioned before, we just have this woodworking table here, so this is a functional space, at least in some regards. But I was also placing a lot of stuff that doesn't really have any functionality for gameplay, because I just wanted this shed to look somewhat realistic. And you're going to see there's, like I mentioned before, there's just a lot of kind of really random and useless clutter. If I could have used seasons, I would have added a flower binding table as well. If you download this, you can just add one if you feel like it. I feel this is also a hobby that these two women would probably pursue. And then when I finally added these decorations, you can see that there's like a gnome, how is this pronounced? A garden gnome on the upper shelf, which I thought that this was another thing that Rosemary bought, and Clara absolutely hates it, and she hid it away on this top shelf because Rosemary is not tall enough to get up there. And then there's also the statue of these two birds that I put on the woodworking table, and one of the birds is like kind of really grumpy looking, and the other one looks super cheerful, and this is them, like Rosemary and Clara, obviously. So yeah, this that was the shed. I'm going to add some more stuff to the outside. So I'm also going to create another flower bed at the back of the house with more white flowers and cypress trees, just to make it look a little bit more overgrown. I kind of like this old town area of Windenburg, but I feel it's a little bit too empty. Like realistically, these old European town centers would have very narrow roads and would just be very crammed together, and there wouldn't be so many wide spaces, and the houses would just be built very close to each other and they wouldn't have that much space around them. And yeah, so I'd kind of try to cover all this empty space up with plants, which also is not super realistic maybe, but it just made it look more cozy and more secluded, and it didn't feel so lost in all this wide and open space. And I was also placing some street lights around the house, so it really blended in with the whole surroundings. And it did some last tweaks and additions off cam when I was already done with most part of the building process. But when I was playtesting, I was doing some last changes because, again, I'm very perfectionist and I could go on with this forever. I really have to stop myself at some point and just tell myself that it's enough now. But yeah, we are already coming really close to the end of this video. So if you're still here after over 50 minutes, then thank you so much. I'm very thankful. Maybe leave some sort of an emoji in the comments, like an elephant, or just write the word elephant so that I know that you've listened to my rambling until this point. This would be very impressive. And yeah, I thank you so much for watching. I hope you still liked this video, even if it was super long, and I hope it was still somewhat enjoyable. If you like to play with this build, it will be available on the gallery for download. My ID is LaTalpaVolante, just like here, and you can also find me on Tumblr and Instagram, so feel free to check out these sites if you're interested. And you can find all the information about this build in the description down below. And if you have any other questions or critique or constructive criticism or just want to say hello, please just leave a comment under this video. If you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing. It would be so much appreciated. And I hope to be back in this month, actually. We will see if this will work out with another apartment renovation, because there's one more unit to do for the Brightchester townhouse, and then we are done with this little project. It just took me about a year to finish it. Completely normal situation. But yeah, then this is something that's coming up, and another tiny glade video, and some more builds in The Sims 4, which I have no idea when these will be finished, but there's potentially something going to happen on this channel. So if you are interested in that, just feel free to stick around. I hope I won't let you wait that long this time. And meanwhile, I hope you have a great time, stay safe, and see you soon. Bye!